Psalm 77 is it's quite an encouraging psalm, but it initially doesn't feel like it. It feels quite kind of heavy and burdened. The person writing it, Asaph still here, is crying out to God. But I want us to see what he does here, because really the first half of the psalm, verses 1 to 9, are pretty much all complaint. And then the complaint yields to a sense of comfort, to a sort of a trust and a sense of, like I say, a sense of comfort in light of all that's gone before. So let's work our way through the first half, and then I'll just give you a glimpse of the second and encourage you to read it for yourself. Start at verse 1. I cry aloud to God, and he will hear me. In the day of my trouble I seek the Lord. In the night my hand is stretched out without wearying. My soul refuses to be comforted. That's an important, interesting phrase, isn't it? My soul refuses to be comforted. When I remember God, I moan. When I meditate, my spirit faints. Sometimes I think when we're looking at Psalms, it seems like we can sort of look at the circumstances, the negative, if you like, and then the moment God enters the picture, everything's great. And there's a sense in which, like Psalm 73, the reminder that God exists, that God loves, and that God's involved is enough to change our entire perspective. But this psalm is honest that sometimes it isn't. Sometimes we can lie awake at night stressed because of what we're facing and because of what we're feeling. And thinking about God sometimes just underlines the frustration in what we're feeling as we refuse to be comforted. Even remembering God just wears us down. What do we do with that? Well, let's keep going, because it's a very important question to address. What if thinking about God doesn't solve the problem? Here, look at these next three lines, the three verses. You hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I consider the days of old, the years long ago. I said, let me remember my song in the night. Let me meditate in my heart. Then my spirit made a diligent search. This language here, you hold my eyelids open. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. This isn't a quick solution. This is the words, the lines written by somebody deeply troubled and lying awake at night. They're not finding the solution immediately. The complaint remains, it lingers. And the question is this, verses 7, 8, 9. Will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? Has his steadfast love forever ceased? Are his promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has he in anger shut up his compassion? This is the question. 4 questions really that, 5, I didn't mark the first one. Look at verse 7. Will the Lord spurn forever and never again be favorable? There's the 5 truths that this Asaph is writing about, that he's thinking about in the night, troubled by his complaint. God's favor, God's steadfast love, God's promises, God's graciousness, God's compassion. Where is it? And sometimes life hits us so hard that we can find ourselves not thrilled at the thought of God, but deeply troubled because God seems to be unengaged, disengaged, uninvolved. God seems to be perhaps shifting in character. Well, this is a really important psalm to look at because it gives us permission to be really honest. When the thought of God isn't an instant comfort, allow this psalm to remind you that that's okay. Engage that, wrestle with that, lie awake all night, night after night, pondering that. But you don't stop at verse 9, you keep going, because the complaint does seem to give way to comfort. As he ponders what God has done, gradually comfort is restored. One little glimpse, and I'm going to let you read the whole thing yourself, but verses 13 to 15, he says, your way, O God, is holy. What God is great like our God? You are the God who works wonders. You have made known your might among the peoples. You with your arm redeemed your people, the children of Jacob and Joseph. As you go through the second half, you'll see that the pondering about God's character eventually gives way to trusting in God's character, to recognizing what God has done, and therefore the comfort now when it seems like God is doing nothing. So there you go, Psalm 77. Take a look and maybe tuck it away. Tuck it away for those times where you need permission to be really honest with God. And then when you're really honest with God and you're really wrestling through something, allow your heart and your mind to be drawn back to all that God has done for you. That's where comfort is to be found. It may not be quick, it may not be instant, but that's where comfort is to be found.